in the beginning of Parshat Yitro, we learn about how Yitro, Choten Moshe, the father-in-law of Moshe, comes to Moshe and gives him an advice about the jurisdiction, about how the judgment should be performed among the Jewish people, and Moshe follows his advice. So a few interesting moral lessons can be learned from this. Number one, of course, the fact that Yitro, who was a non-Jew, basically, he was from Midian, which is probably today Saudi Arabia. I think there's actually an area in Saudi Arabia today that is called Madian. Of course, all of these areas are mostly today have Arab culture and Arab nation, but there used to live all kinds of nations all over the place in the Middle East, and the Arabs basically conquered these areas, and the language today everywhere is Arabic, and the culture and the religion is Islam, but there used to be all kinds of nations in these places, and maybe some of their descendants, even though they're not noticeable separate nations, but some of their descendants, at least genetically, could be the contributors of today's Arabs who live in all of these areas. Now, I don't think it makes really any difference. There's very little difference today between Arabs in, let's say, Jordan and in Syria and Iraq and Egypt. I mean, all of these places, I mean, they divide themselves more according to sometimes religion, because there are some Arabs who are Christian, and sometimes they divide themselves also, and that's the most important loyalty for Arabs, is a Hamul, what's called a family of theirs, Mishpacha in Hebrew, right? That's why even, let's say, an Arab from Aleppo would not be the same as an Arab from Damascus. So that exists. Those differences exist. And by the way, even Jews had slightly different customs in different areas. So Jews from Damascus and Jews from Aleppo, both are in Syria, but both are somewhat distinguishable. They specifically point out that our family comes from Syria, from Aleppo, not just from any part of Syria. And the same thing with Jews, let's say, from various other areas. A lot of times they mention not just the country, but specific city where they come from, because of the slight differences in the customs. So people are often do remember exactly where they come from. But in the general sense, of course, all the Arabs is to a large extent one nation, and until recently they did consider themselves. There was a very great movement of pan-Arabism. But at some point there was a separate nation called Midian. By the way, it's interesting that the Druze community claim that they come from Yitro. I don't know if we could verify such a thing, but that's what they claim. I don't know if they claim that all of them are descendants of Yitro or from the same clan as Yitro. Now, today, Druze live generally in the north of Israel. Some of them, and of course, not only in Israel, they also live in southern Lebanon and southern Syria, but they're more or less in compact area. They live in compact area between at least 3 different countries. Today they're Muslim, but they have a peculiar version of Islam. I don't think the other Muslims consider them regular Muslims, but their religion was probably forced upon them as Islam at some point. But it could be that in the biblical times they practiced either Judaism, or at least some of them may have converted to Judaism. Maybe others didn't actually convert to Judaism, but were our allies. We actually read about one such woman in previous Haftarah. What we read from the prophet in the last Parsha, in Parshat Beshalach, was the story of Devorah and the battle against Sisra, the main leader of Canaanites, the main general of Canaanites, and he was killed by a woman who came from was the wife of Hever HaKeni. Keni is apparently what we called Druzes at that time, right? The family of Yitro. If Druzes are in fact from Yitro, as they claim, then probably they were called Keni or Kenim at the time of the biblical times, at the time of Shoftim, of Judges. Whatever the case may be, basically a person who was at that time not Jewish, and there are different opinions whether he came before the giving of the Torah or after Sinaitic revelation. And there are opinions that he later converted to Judaism and went back and converted his family. Whatever the case may be, this Yitro, at the time he came, his great advice was followed even by Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu was not ashamed to follow an advice of his father-in-law and the Torah recorded it. And we even call the Parsha Yitro because of this, since that's where we started reading. Usually the Parsha is called by one of the few words, so since it says that Yitro came, so the whole Parsha of giving of the Torah is called Yitro. So forever and ever we'll remember Yitro for the good things he did for us. This wonderful person, Yitro. He had a number of names, by the way. Later on the Torah will call him Chovav. Maybe if he converted to Judaism, this was his new Jewish name that he acquired. It will be in the Sefer Bamidbar, he will be called by this other name. Whatever the case may be, what I wanted to discuss today is his specific advice. Well, first of all, why didn't Moshe think of it? It seems to be a logical thing. If there are too many people, you can't judge the people always by yourself. The answer seems to be, as some of the commentators say, that Moshe really wanted to have contact with every single person. Every Jewish person should be able to come to Moshe with his questions, with his story, and Moshe will give him his attention. He's man of the people. Moshe is not some great king who is separated by many different levels and nobody can really approach him. No, Moshe is a man of the people. Anybody, if they stand a long line, they could get a possibility to meet him. By the way, we find that a lot among Hasidic leaders specifically. A lot of them were trying to, of course, again, if you're trying to serve so many people, there will be a long line. But eventually, after waiting in a long line, you'll be able to see the Rebbe. So, for instance, among Lubavitchers, I'm not Lubavitch, but I just know that when the last Lubavitch Rebbe was alive, there used to be huge lines just to see him. And of course, you could get a long appointment, but to see him and to have a few words with him, you would have to stand for hours, but eventually you would be able to see him. I think it was on Sundays that he would receive people in such large numbers. I'm not sure. But there are other rabbis too, less known rabbis that also had a possibility that you could. I was once, for instance, by Ribnitzer Rebbe. There was certain great rabbis that you could get access to. They really wanted everybody to be able to see them. But of course, the downside of it is you have to wait in a long line. So Moshe wanted everybody to be able to have access to him. And Yitro, seeing all this, told him that it's not really practical, and only the people who have a greater judgment, a more important judgment, we'll get to in a moment what Yitro meant. They will go to Moshe, but everybody else should go to regular judges. And Moshe agreed with it. Fine, right? People who really need to see me, they'll see me. But the majority of the people, they should be able to get their case settled quicker. And by the way it worked out, it was really great, because first of all, people then would not suspect that Moshe was trying to create a big bureaucracy, right? He really wanted to judge everybody. Only after Yitro's advice, and people apparently also liked this idea. They understood that this is much better, that everybody should be able to get a judgment settled quicker. But at the same time, they knew that Moshe ideally wanted to see them all. He loves them all, and he is available to all of them. So it was only after the advice of Yitro that Moshe had to admit that this is the way to go, but ideally he would want to see every Jew. Now, the interesting question is, if you read carefully what Yitro suggested and what Moshe actually did, there is a slight difference. Notice how Yitro said, the Davar Gadol, big things, will come to you, small things, other judges will judge. There's an expression in English, small claims court. Some of the commentators, including Alshich was a great Torah commentator in the times of Arizal, 500 years ago, a commentator according to the Pshat, the simple meaning of the Torah. Rabbi Moshe Alshich, a very, very great rabbi, also living in Tzfat, in the northern Israel, in Galil. This Rabbi Moshe Alshich is quoted by a number of other commentators. And also, apparently, other commentators independently arrived to the same idea, that Davar Gadol here seems to mean important people. So in Yitro's perception, Moshe should only judge really big people. And small people, or minor judgments rather, maybe on somewhere where the amount of money involved is really not a lot, that Moshe should not be involved with. Not a big deal if it's going to be a mistake by some other judge. It's not worth Moshe's time to spend over this. And Moshe actually did not agree on that. According to this interpretation, when it says that Moshe, the new judges were told that every davar kasher, difficult case, will be brought before Moshe. So Moshe did not agree that there is such a thing as minor judgment. There are no minor judgments. Right? The Talmud tells us that even in the case of pruta, a small amount of money, the smallest coin that existed, today a penny you can buy anything for, but in those times a pruta you could buy fruit for it. A pruta is still some money, and for a poor person a pruta means a lot. So the Talmud tells us that the judges have to consider case of pruta also important. For somebody a pruta is important. Don't just dismiss it as saying, who cares who wins? It's only a pruta. So Moshe said instead this division, that you will be judging all the easy cases, but any difficulty you have, doesn't matter if it's important or not important judgment. If it's a lot of money or the people who came are important, that's not that's not where the difference would lie. The difference would lie whether it's a difficult case or an easy case. If it's an easy case, you will judge. If it's a difficult case you'll bring to me. That's what Moshe told them. Davar kasher. Difficult cases you'll bring to me. And this is what I want to share with you. And if you like this video, please press like and please subscribe to our channel.